All right, Press Box Podcast time once again. This is your host, Joseph Miranda, along with my co-host, Ralph Miranda. In this episode, obviously, we've got the Super Bowl set. We're going to talk about the Patriots-Rams matchup. I guess you could say rematch from Super Bowl 36. We're going to talk a little bit of some MLB Hall of Fame. Those announcements just came through the other day. And then we'll hit on a few topics here to finish up as well. We've got the Kyler Murray situation, talk a little James Harden, briefly some golf, a lot of stuff going on. Heading into that post-NFL sports time we're in now. So we'll get right into it here in a second. Before that, I want to say, our Twitter account's still there, PressBoxPod on Twitter, as well as our sponsor, Bonusroom Art. If you haven't been to that website yet, you can go ahead and go there as well, bonusroomart.com, as we've talked about before. Without further ado, let's get into this episode of the PressBox Podcast. Pressbox Podcast time once again. As we said in the opening, let's start with we have our Super Bowl matchup now, Rams and Patriots, which in fact is the exact same Super Bowl matchup 17 years ago from the day it will be played.
That's right.
Rams Patriots Super Bowl 36 on February 3rd, 2002. Here we are 17 years later. Brady's still there. Belichick's still there. Totally different Rams team.
Totally different.
I mean, nothing. Not even the same city. So, but let's start with the games that led us there. We've got, which I'll go ahead and say I didn't get to see as much of them because I was traveling on Sunday. But you had the first game, the Saints and Eagles. So the Saints and Rams. We'll start there. I guess we'll go ahead and start with what everybody's talking about is the call at the end of the game, the non-pass interference call. I guess we'll just start there since that seems to be the main topic. But look, it was obviously pass interference, okay? I mean, the guy got there early. He made contact with the receiver. But I think, of course, I don't have a stake in the game. I'm not a fan of either team. But it's just one of those things you just kind of have to live with. Like, calls are going to be missed. Like, you hear the NFL talking now about reviewing pass interference calls and all this stuff, which I think is ridiculous. I mean, it's just sometimes calls are going to be missed. And it's bad that it happened at a high moment like that, especially if you're a Saints fan. But I think that's kind of how it goes. I mean, it wasn't the right call, but, it's how it goes. The Rams won, right?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you 100%. But again, I think you hit on it right away when you said that you don't have a dog in the hunt. You're not a fan of either team. I think if you were, I put myself in that situation. If that was the Giants and it would have happened to them, I would really have been upset, okay? So I can see that. I can see the reaction to it. But again, people don't want to hear this, and especially the Saints fans don't want to hear this, but they still had plenty of opportunities to win that football game, all right? And it really, if you're a professional, you have to put that behind you and move forward and finish the game out. They kicked the field goal. They went ahead. They couldn't stop the Rams from tying it in overtime. They got the ball first in overtime and couldn't drive down and score, so they had plenty of opportunities. And even before that call, when they completed a long pass to Michael Thompson down there around the 11-yard line to get to get the first down, all right, before that penalty. And they threw the ball on the first play, incomplete. The Rams had 2 timeouts. Run the football, force the Rams to use their timeout, kick the field goal, take the lead. The Rams would have had no timeouts and probably about 40 seconds or so left in the game. They might have kicked the field goal. They might not have to tie the game. So there's lots of factors that play into it. The interesting thing, though, which I didn't even realize this, and I'm a big football guy, but I was watching the Boomer and Geo show on CBS Sports the other morning, and Boomer outlined pretty specifically that obviously there's 7 officials, right? There's a back judge who stands there behind the goalpost. There's a field judge the guy that was in the corner of the end zone that you saw waving it incomplete. And then there's the line judge, or the line judge who stands right at the down marker. Okay. his point was that each official throughout the game has a responsibility of who they're watching, right? The referees lined up behind the quarterback, the umpires lined up behind the line of scrimmage. He's watching holding and so forth. The referees watching roughing the passer and things of that nature. They've all got responsibilities. In that particular play, the Saints were lined up with two receivers to the right and a running back. Okay, the running back is the guy that ran the wheel route down the sideline, who the penalty was perpetrated against. Well, the back judge, based on that formation, according to Esiason, the back judge behind the goalpost had the slot receiver. The field judge, who was in the corner of the end zone, had the outside receiver, and the line judge on the line of scrimmage had the back coming out of the backfield. So that's why the field judge in the corner of the end zone, he was watching his receiver, and when he caught out of the corner of his eye, the ball hit the ground, he just went incomplete. He wasn't watching that play, he was watching his guy, saw the ball hit the ground, incomplete. The guy who made the mistake was the line judge, because he should have been watching that receiver the whole time, and for some reason, he must have got distracted and was watching something else, and when he turned his attention back to that, it was too late. Right. Okay? So it was a human error. The guy is just like you or me or anybody else losing their focus for a minute or something and forgetting to do something, okay? Yeah. Now, it was a pretty big mistake in a pretty big situation, but that's exactly what happened. But I agree with you. I mean, you have to... There's no way they're going to replay the game. These idiots who've been talking about, they need to replay. That's the
most ridiculous thing ever. Yeah.
That was the most ridiculous. You've heard where they're talking about how they quoted some rule out of the NFL rule book where Goodell has like the power to declare a calamity. I mean,
it's ridiculous. Like the last thing the Rams would ever do is retake the field. That's absurd.
Why would you do that? Yeah. I mean, and why would the commission? Can you imagine what that would cause to bring those two teams back out here on Sunday? And that's ridiculous. I mean, I just don't get it. But
I totally agree. But another big thing in the Rams is their kicker, Zerline, making a big. I know which one was the 40
the 48-yarder was the end of regulation, the game. Right.
And he made a 53-yarder
57
in overtime. It looked like it'd be good from about 77.
Yeah, it was.
So that's the guy. What's his nickname? His nickname is the Leg.
Greg the Leg.
Greg the Leg.
What is Legatron? Is that what they call it?
Legatron. It's Legatron. Yeah. He definitely earned that Sunday. Those were some big playoff kicks there. And Saints fans have to remember, like, it went their way in 2009, the Vikings game. Favre threw that pick, which he should have never thrown.
Right.
And back then, the overtime rules were sudden death. They got the toss and kicked the field goal.
Right.
And the rules changed because of that game.
Right.
So, it goes your way sometimes. It doesn't go your way sometimes. I know I'm not a Saints fan, like I said, but, they're not going to replay the game. I picked the Saints to go to the Super Bowl, so I was wrong there. But, it is what it is, as they say. Well,
they botched it. The Saints botched it because, granted, the play went against them. But as I said, what the Rams ended up being left with is 1:39 minutes and one timeout. Yeah. If you'd have left them with 40 seconds and no timeouts, it would have made that drive a lot more difficult, okay? They still might have been able to do it with Greg the Leg or Legatron, but it would have made it more difficult. So they were their own worst enemy by throwing the football. I mean, I know you want to try to be aggressive. I know you want to try to score, but you got to play the percentages in that situation and force the other team to use their timeouts and take the lead. That's the only way to play it.
Yeah.
So be it. The Rams are in the Super Bowl.
Yeah. And also, like I said, I didn't get to see a ton of it. But what was up with Todd Gurley? Apparently he wasn't hurt, although they didn't announce an injury, but he just had a bad game, and they took him out and they played the.
C.J.
Anderson for most of the second half.
Yeah, I don't think there's ever been an official word. I know the sideline reporter was trying to get information to that effect, but I think he was hurt the end of the season. Yeah. He missed the last 3 games. He really was not that effective against the Cowboys in the first playoff game, and he was pitiful Sunday. I mean, he dropped passes. One of them led to an interception. He just wasn't very good, and he even admitted it. He said, "I just didn't play very well." And I deserve to be taken out. He wasn't upset, and I think the coach did the right thing. He said, look, good thing we got this other running back. He's got a hot hand. Let's go with him. Yeah. But I'll say this, though. I think the Rams know, and so do their fans, that if you don't get the real Todd Gurley against the Patriots, you really don't have much of a chance.
Yeah. So that'll lead us to the Patriots game. Patriots win Kansas City in overtime also. Whereas, and I think we talked about this in some of our previous episodes, that you know, for Kansas City to even have a chance, they needed the home field advantage. They got it, and they still weren't able to do it. Yeah, here we are again. The Patriots are back in the Super Bowl, which I picked the Patriots in that game because I just figured that they would win. I mean, Mahomes is not a rookie. Technically, he is a rookie in terms of his first full season starting. And I thought going in, he just didn't have quite what it takes to win that game, and he didn't. The Chiefs, they played well, obviously, but what did you see from the Patriots in that game? Heading into the Super Bowl.
Yeah, well, let me go on record first to say that I hate the Patriots. Okay, I mean, I just want that let out there right away that I'm not a Patriot fan, and I really don't like Tom Brady. I respect what he's been able to accomplish, but I'll say this: the Patriots have to be the best organization in the NFL. I mean, Bill Belichick is a genius, all right, because he's always able to figure out how to take away your number one weapon, all right? He's going to do that. And what he did in this game is, he took advantage of Patrick Mahomes being a rookie. And Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill is his go-to guy, that little fast receiver, right? So what did Belichick do? Just about every play, they would double Tyreek Hill. So Patrick Mahomes would step back there. He'd look right for Tyreek Hill. He couldn't hit it to him. And what did that do? It bought his pass rushers 1 or 2 extra seconds, and they sacked him on a couple of occasions when it was really impaired. One time, it took him out of field goal range. They were in field goal range. He took a sack, and they were out of field goal range. So, again, it was a brilliant defensive plan by Bill Belichick to take away the number one receiver. The Chiefs made some adjustments in the second half. I mean, heck, I think the Chiefs scored 31 points in the second half. Right. I mean, that's unbelievable. Yeah. But the Patriots, again, Tom Brady is a surgeon. I mean, he took that overtime drive and he just, pinpoint passes right on the money, exactly where they needed to be thrown. He had pretty good protection, got the ball out quickly, with the exception of that phantom roughing the passer penalty that they called. But the Patriots are the Patriots, and you can really never count them out. I don't care what kind of season. I think our producer, Nathan, has said on a couple of occasions that it's almost like they don't care about the regular season, Well,
I think you're starting to see that with Brady now, too, as he gets older. Like, he kind of just finds a way to get through the regular season. Obviously, you need your 10 or 11 wins to get in the playoffs. But,
right.
You saw him look not so sharp sometimes this season, almost like the playoffs, and he's like, okay, I'm going to put my best effort for it and make sure I'm firing on all cylinders. And, yeah, he definitely did that. Talking about Belichick and his game plan, this will be his 11th Super Bowl.
Yes,
counting the 2 with the Giants, 9 with the Patriots.
Yes,
so that's basically 20% of all Super Bowls he's coached in.
Exactly.
That's amazing to think about.
That is amazing. It really is when you think about it. Yeah. I mean, and you talked about the Patriots, and basically they just need 10 or 11 wins to get in the playoffs. Right. And these other teams are helping them. I mean. Going into the second to last week of the season, if you remember, the Texans actually had the second seed. Yeah. And they went to Philadelphia and botched that game, all right? Had they won that game, the Patriots would have had to play in Wild Card weekend, all right? And they probably would have had to play the Colts. Now, they might have beaten the Colts, but then they would have had to go to the Texans. My point is, they would have had to play an extra game. Right. And with an older team, an older quarterback, that's a lot more difficult. Yeah. All right. So these other teams are helping them. And they play in a weak division.
Yeah, the division is weak. Yeah.
I mean, let's face it. I mean, you put them in the North Division against the Steelers and the Ravens. Have to play 4 games with those guys every year. I mean, I know it is what it is, but like you said, they look on their schedule and they say, okay, we've got 6 wins right here in our division. Right. All we got to do is piece together 4 out of the next 10, and we're in.
That's pretty much it. Really.
Pretty much it.
Yeah, it's the path is there every year. So looking at the Super Bowl now. I haven't even looked at the lines. I'm sure the Patriots are favored.
They are. Yeah.
I don't see anywhere the Rams win this game, just because some of the factors we've talked about. This will be the 9th Super Bowl for Brady and Belichick. I don't know. I don't really see Goff and McVay putting anything together that's going to beat them. Do you? I mean, like you said, Belichick's going to have a great game plan that's going to probably confuse Goff to some extent. Because he hasn't seen everything in the league yet.
Right.
Yeah, I just don't see it. I mean, you got Todd Gurley coming in uncertain, as we talked about. So I think the Patriots win the Super Bowl again.
Well,
as much as to our chagrin.
Much to our chagrin. Well, let's take a look at this really from a realistic standpoint. I mean, outside of Super Bowl 38 and 39, all right, which was 2003 and 4. Those were dominant Super Bowl games by the Patriots, okay? But what's happened since then? In 07, they were undefeated and the Giants beat them in the Super Bowl. In 11, the Giants beat them in the Super Bowl. In 14...
They took that intercepted pass. The Seahawks would have ran the ball, yeah.
The Seahawks run the ball, they lose that Super Bowl. 16, the Falcons had a 28-3 lead. Right. If they run the football, they win the Super Bowl. What happened last year? They lost the Super Bowl. My point being, okay, is that the Patriots seem to dominate the AFC, but when they get in the Super Bowl, outside of those 2 years, they've either lost or the game's been handed to them, okay? So to answer your question, to go back to your original question, on paper, you look and you say, there's no way the Rams can beat this team. But first of all, the Rams have a much better defense than the Chiefs do.
Well, right? Defensive line in particular.
Defensive line in particular.
And
Donald,
yeah.
Exactly.
If they can... Obviously, everybody knows this. Get some pass rush like the Giants were able to do. That's
exactly.
going to be big for them.
And they have a secondary. Aqib Talib is pretty good, and so is Marcus Peters. Okay, now let's look at their offense. They don't really have a guy outside of Gurley that they go to all the time. Yeah. They have a lot of different receivers that they go to. So who do you take away? Yeah, you can take away Gurley, but they've already proven that they can win with C.J. Anderson. So I think it's going to be, how does Goff react in this game? Okay, it took Mahomes a half to figure it out. Will it take Goff that long? Who knows? I want to go back to one thing that the Patriots do real well. They did against the Chiefs, which the Rams have to be careful about, is the Patriots had a tremendous plan against the Chiefs. In the first half of that game, they ran the football, okay, and they got the lead. And once they got the lead, then they employed their tactics because they forced Kansas City to have to fight their way back. So it's imperative for the Rams, I think, to either get the lead or stay very close to the Patriots in this game.
Yeah. Based on what you said there, I would agree with that. Now, one thing that favors the Rams is they're not somebody like the Ravens that need to put together a drive to score points.
Right.
They do have a quick strike offense through the air, so a 14, even a 7-point lead early is not incapable. They're not incapable of coming back from that.
Correct.
But in terms of ball control and stopping the run, staying close would benefit them for sure.
Yeah, and I think with Todd Gurley, if he plays, if he becomes the Todd Gurley that we know he is, I think that makes a little bit of a difference.
Yeah.
Even if they try to take him away, that opens up C.J. Anderson and some of these other guys.
It's much more of an advantage for them if he's firing out cylinders as opposed to C.J. Anderson.
Exactly, but again, here's the key. Okay, how did the Giants beat the Patriots twice? All right, we've been through this a number of times. They pressured Brady with their front four. But to be able to do that, you've also got to play coverage on the back end for at least 3 or 4 seconds. You've got to play it. What happened in the Chiefs game? He was getting that ball out so quickly that they really couldn't get to him because the guys were open. All right. So somehow you've got to figure out a way to cover these receivers for at least 3 or 4 seconds so your defensive line can get to Brady. Because if you can't pressure Brady, you can't win. You just cannot beat him.
Yeah. So do you have a prediction yet on the game?
I don't yet, but
obviously almost too early.
Yeah. I mean, my head tells me the Patriots, but my heart tells me the Rams.
I want to see the Rams, but I'm pulling for the Rams.
Well, and this could also be full circle, right? The Super Bowl that you opened with and referenced in 36, the Rams were heavy favorites. Yeah. The Patriots were the upstart team, right? This is the shoes on the other foot now. So maybe the Rams can pull it off.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be fun. Quick, we got to hit on the third factor of this game. You got the Patriots, you've got the Rams, and you got Tony Romo.
That's true.
Okay? Tony Romo will be calling the game. He made big waves this past week. He's been doing this for 2 years now, but just seemingly calling all the plays before they happen. His level of excitement. I think you said he's going to hyperventilate during the game.
He is. They'll have to have oxygen up the booth.
Yeah, but it'll be fun to listen to him. I saw one thing where I think he's got one more year on a CBS deal or something like that, and people are saying, he's made himself a ton of money going into his broadcast free agency because
Yes, he has.
CBS is going to want him back.
Yes.
Other networks are going to try to get him. So
Yes.
that's going to be fun to listen to.
Well, and but then I've heard people say, of course, everybody tries to throw cold water on other people's success, but that, part of his ability to predict he basically predicted every play the Patriots were going to run, okay? But they were saying, well, was it because he knew what was going to happen or he'd been at practice all week and seen what they were doing? I doubt. I think he just knows what's going on. I mean,
and another thing I think helps too is he's not far removed from playing, right?
Right.
So he's played against Belichick. He's played against Andy Reid.
Right.
Guys like Troy Aikman, he's been out of the league 21 years now.
Yeah, that's right.
So, I mean,
that's right.
It gives Romo a little bit of advantage because he's been around these guys and these schemes and stuff,
I'll tell you what I'd like to see. Go back to that broadcasting free agency. I'd like to see Buck and Romo together. I like Joe Buck. I do.
Yeah.
I don't like Jim Nantz at all. I think Jim Nantz is a twerp. Okay, but I think Joe Buck's the best.
You just want to switch and Aikman and Nantz, and then
give Aikman to Nantz and send Buck over to and what's his name? Collinsworth and Michaels are kind of like
they're my favorite.
Yeah, I know they're your favorite, but they're kind of like the cherry on top. They're kind of like the dessert. Sunday night, you're tired, but you're ready for a little more football, so they come on.
Yeah. That'll be fun for sure as well. All right, well, shifting gears now. What do you want to hit on next?
Let's talk about the Hall of Fame.
Okay.
The Baseball Hall of Fame.
That's right.
All right.
Yeah.
So we just had the Baseball Hall of Fame announcement of the guys that are going to be inducted this coming July. 4 guys were selected. Mike Mussina, former Oriole pitcher and Yankee pitcher.
Yeah.
Roy Halladay, posthumously, of course, because of his recent death. Edgar Martinez, the DH for the Seattle Mariners, and of course the great Mariano Rivera. Yeah. And Mariano Rivera became the first person in the history of baseball, which is amazing, to be elected to the Hall of Fame unanimously.
First of all, he deserves 100%, but it's ridiculous that he's the first ever to get that. Because there's been countless guys before him that deserved that 100%. Babe Ruth didn't get 100% of the vote.
That's exactly right. Yeah,
and I think he was in maybe the first Hall of Fame class.
He was
something
the
like
first
that.
class.
Ty Cobb didn't get 100%. This is ridiculous.
And see, can't ask those guys because those voters are dead. But I'd like to for somebody to have the balls to ask the voters who voted when Griffey was eligible, the same guys, the one who didn't vote for Griffey but did vote for Mariano Rivera, and ask them why. What makes you think that? Rivera deserves to be there and deserves 100%. But why is Rivera, a guy that only pitches once every 2 days, and Griffey an everyday player?
That's what I said. Like, if you're going to pick one of those guys to give the 100% to, you give it to Griffey. I'll hear the argument that Rivera doesn't deserve 100% because he was a closer and not an everyday player. Right. I don't agree with that argument. I think he deserves it, but I'll hear that. If you say I don't want to vote for Rivera for that reason, I'll say, that's fine. I can't really argue with you there. Right. I don't agree with it. But maybe this guy had an epiphany like, hey, this is ridiculous. Next guy I get that deserves 100%, I'm going to do it. But it's kind of weird. I mean, obviously he deserved to be in. In my opinion, I think that's it from this class. I
agree.
I don't think any of the other 3 guys deserve it. I don't know. Partly based on what the Baseball Hall of Fame has been, and what I think the Hall of Fame should be. It's the best of the best, the Hall of Fame. Really good players don't make the Hall of Fame. Right. Multiple All-Stars don't make the Hall of Fame. It's the Hall of Fame.
Right.
Why should Mike Mussina be in the Hall of Fame with Cy Young and Walter Johnson and Greg Maddux when he's not as good as those guys? Not even close. Now, I'll admit, I didn't realize he had 270 wins. It's a lot of wins.
That is a lot of wins.
It's 30 shy of 300, and not too many pitchers these days even get to 300 wins.
Right.
But but now you put him in. Now you got to put Kurt Schilling in. They have very similar careers.
Right.
You put Roy Halladay in, the guy pitched a perfect game. He had a couple no hitters, but what's the guy's name? Dennis Martinez also pitched a perfect game. He's not in the Hall of Fame. Okay, Holladay's a really good pitcher. He's not a Hall of Famer.
No, I agree with that.
Edgar Martinez. I saw somebody tweeted the guy never even brought his glove to the yard. Okay, he's in the Hall of Fame. Really good hitter, not a Hall of Famer. Okay, so this is, I don't know.
Well, but let's talk about that. That brings up. I agree with you, but that brings up the question: is that what are these guys? What are first of all, a lot of these writers, I don't even think some of them, from what I've gathered, are all baseball writers.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay, so that'd be like asking our neighbor here to vote for the Hall of Fame because of what he watches on TV. Yeah. Okay, well, I mean, he may think, "Wow, I really like that guy. I think he should be in the Hall of Fame." Yeah. Well, so it brings up my question: is what standards are you comparing these guys to? Are you comparing them to the guys that are in the Hall of Fame that have won 330 games as a pitcher, or are you comparing them only to the guys of their era?
Well, I think I don't know this. I think they feel like, well, here's a new year. We got to get a handful of guys in, or you don't have to vote for one guy. Vote for no. They did that a few years back. They did that a couple years back.
Nobody got in.
That's what I thought was great.
Yeah.
If you don't deserve to get in, nobody gets in. They're not as bad as the NFL, parading in 12 guys every year. But yeah, I mean, if nobody deserves it. Now, on a separate issue, Bond and Clemens didn't get in this year. They got in the high 50%.
And they got 3 years left.
Yeah, they obviously deserve to be in. This is ridiculous. I don't even think you put an asterisk or separate wing of the Hall of Fame. Just put them in. They're Hall of Fame players. Everybody knows the suspicions. Like, you don't have to say it. People are like, oh, yeah, he maybe took steroids or whatever. But just put them in. They're Hall of Fame players. You know what I mean?
Listen, I agree with you. I think that, we've talked about this. I mean, guys like Mark McGwire and Barry Bonds, and even Clemens to a degree, took steroids when they weren't illegal.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, they were passed around the locker room regularly, okay? Now, some of these newer guys, obviously, who are getting caught are going against the rules. But, I don't know that you can keep them out of the Hall of Fame, I guess. I mean, I was, and I've talked about this, I've said this, I'm starting to come around a little bit after 30 years on Pete Rose. But, if you bet on baseball, that's a non-Hall of Fame offense, at least for a while, okay? Or if you bet on, something like that you destroy the integrity of the game, okay? But we don't even know how many guys were taking steroids, for goodness sakes, okay? So how can you decide, okay, because Bonds and Clemens are high visible players, we're going to go ahead and penalize them, okay? I just don't think it's fair.
Yeah. I don't have any evidence opposite, but I can guarantee you that there's somebody in the Hall of Fame right now that took steroids.
No question.
That people don't know about, or
no question.
I don't know who that would be, but there's probably somebody like that. So
no question.
Yeah, and I mean, like you said, they weren't illegal. That's the biggest thing. I mean, we talked about it, and I said I'll be very interested to see what happens to A-Rod because, one, they were illegal when he tested positive,
right?
And two, he's reframed his image now where he's liked by everyone, and part of the reason Bond and Clemens aren't in is people don't like him,
right?
Because Bond was probably kind of a dick when he played, and Clemens similar.
Yeah.
But now everybody loves A-Rod. He's turned his image around, so we'll see what happens with that.
Well, you see, A-Rod reminds me a lot of Arnold Schwarzenegger. Okay, and the reason I say that is, if you remember Arnold Schwarzenegger when he was governor, right after he left the governor's office, they uncovered that affair that he had with his maid.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. And he really, really went down politically, and But what did he do? He went back to his base, didn't he? He started doing movies again. He started smoking cigars. He started doing stuff that the old Arnold Schwarzenegger would do, right? And he's rebuilt his image, right? A-Rod is smart, okay? What did he do? He rebuilt his image. He got on Baseball Tonight. Yeah. He got on the Sunday Night Baseball. He does the Fox stuff. He's says the right things, does the right things. He came out just yesterday and said, I really feel bad for Bonds and Clemens. I think they should be in. I hope, I get in. But he goes, I made a mistake. He's saying the right things. So he's hoping that when he's eligible here in another 3 years, right, that they'll say, oh, A-Rod's really a pretty good guy. Let's just go ahead and let him in. But I think you hit the nail on the head. I think Bonds and Clemens, pissed so many people off that these guys are just not going to let them get in,
Yeah, but I also think that you can't put A-Rod in until you put Bond and Clemens in.
I agree with that.
If they vote A-Rod in, that's completely ridiculous.
I agree with that. I mean, I agree with that 100%. Yeah. But I think, what did we say? Clemens and Bonds have 3 more years, right? Which is what? 20, 21, and 22. Yeah. And A-Rod's eligible in 22, right? Yeah. Okay. Put all 3 of them in together that year. Yeah, that's the way to do it, and then end it, right? Yeah. Because aren't those the 3 guys left that there's any question about? Really?
David Ortiz?
Yeah, but he's not a Hall of Famer. I don't think.
You're going to put him in.
But I don't think he's a Hall of Famer. All right? But I mean, but is he really even being, he doesn't even, He hasn't been proven to be taking steroids. Okay, so that's a different story, though. But what I'm getting at is there any other really high-profile great player? No. So it's those three.
Yeah.
So really, what the best thing to do is in 2022, when Bonds and Clemens are on their last leg and A-Rod's on his first, put him in.
Yeah, that'd be good. I like that.
You know, I mean, and then end it, and then it's over.
Yeah.
So.
And the thing is, you're gonna have. I don't know off the top of my head how many years the Hall of Fame's been around, but you went all these years with no 100%. You're about to have 2 because Jeter's going to make it next year. He better.
He better.
There's no excuse not to.
There ought to be. There definitely be an investigation if he does it, because then the question would be, how could you vote for one Yankee?
Yeah.
That's
He didn't play every day.
Yeah, no. Jeter will get 100%. There's no question about that. And then I find it hard to believe after that anybody will ever get it again, at least in our lifetime that I see.
Maybe Mike Trout, if one day.
Right, Mike Trout in your lifetime, probably.
Trajectory.
Yeah, because he's 26, 27 years old, something like that. So he's not going to be eligible for the Hall of Fame for a good another 20 years. So, but it's possible.
Clayton Kershaw, maybe, I don't know.
Maybe, but see, Kershaw. I mean, again, that goes back to the question of: do you reward Hall of Fame performance for a star that burns really bright for a short time, or a star that burns not so bright for a long time?
Yeah.
I mean, Kershaw's been great for a few years, but I mean, how many games has he won? Was he even at 200 wins yet?
I don't know. He's been around for a long time.
He's been at least 9 years, or is it 10 years, something like that?
Yeah.
And I don't think he's averaged 20 wins a year, but he might be over 200 wins. I don't know. But I don't know. I mean, it's hard to gauge. It's hard to gauge really what you would do with a Kershaw.
Let's see here. He's got 153 career wins.
Yeah, I mean, and you would think he'd have like 220 when you think about Clayton Kershaw, right?
Yeah.
There's a good chance. There's a good chance. You're going to laugh at me when I say this. There's a good chance.
He doesn't get to 200.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm not laughing. I agree with that.
So is that Hall of Fame?
No,
I don't think so. No. But I guarantee you they'll be talking about him to put him in there, because what do they want to look at now is they want to look at WAR. What's your WAR number?
Yeah.
Well, I think WAR is a ridiculous number. We had this discussion, you and I, yesterday, right? We were talking about, and this is a good thing for our Twitter account, for those of you out there who would like to participate, is
put up a question.
tweet us the 4 Yankees that you would put on the Yankee Mount Rushmore of the Yankees organization. I said it would be Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig, Joe DiMaggio, and Derek Jeter. And Joseph, you said Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig, Mickey Mantle, and Jeter. Yeah. Okay, so we got in that discussion and we started comparing their statistics. All right, Mickey Mantle, his WAR number is like 110, and DiMaggio's was like 79. All right, well, if you look at that, you'd think, wow, Mickey Mantle's by far a better player. Mickey Mantle played 18 years. DiMaggio played 13, but spent 3 years in the service during World War II.
Right.
He had, I think, 8 or 9 seasons in a row, well over 100 RBIs, all right? If you'd have put those 3 seasons back, he'd have had like over 1,800 RBIs. My whole point in saying that is that when you start comparing players, if you're only looking at statistical analysis, I think you get a skewed perspective of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. I wasn't really thinking about statistics. I just think that Mickey Mantle's like persona and greatness is more synonymous with the Yankees' greatness history than DiMaggio. I mean, DiMaggio, I kid around, like all he ever did was have the hit streak. Okay, I mean, he was a good player back in the '50s. There were a lot of guys that were good players, but his hit streak like vaulted him to another level.
Well, and I keep saying that by saying that everybody knows him for the 56-game hitting streak, but after it was stopped, he went on another 26-game hitting streak. So he basically hit in 82 out of 83 straight games, which is pretty phenomenal.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's hard to gauge. But I agree with you. I think they put way too many guys in the Hall of Fame. I mean, it's just
definitely did.
There's no question about that. It used to not be that way in baseball.
I know. That's what I'm saying. When they had the year where they voted nobody in.
Yeah. I mean, they're starting. It's almost like they want to become like football.
And if you want to do the 10-year window, that's fine. But then you're done after that. None of this Veterans Committee. Harold Baines and
that's ridiculous.
Who else?
I forget the other guy.
I can't think of the top of my head. But those guys are not Hall of Famers either.
No, they're not Hall of Famers.
That's ridiculous.
Harold Baines was the biggest joke going.
Yeah, if you can't get in after for your 10-year window, then obviously you're not Hall of Famer.
No,
I mean
let's face it. The Hall of Fame is you were the best of the best.
Yeah.
It's not a lifetime achievement
Right.
award.
Right.
I mean, and that's what they're trying to make it. I think is a lifetime achievement award, and it's ridiculous.
What do you think about, real quickly? obviously the Harold Band thing was a Lifetime Achievement Award, but the number marks, like the 3,000 hits, like if you maybe you weren't like a great player, but you hung around long enough and you had enough good season to get 3,000 hits. Like
Well,
you
Craig Biggio's one of those guys,
yeah, he's
right?
that guy. Yeah,
I mean,
Adrian Beltre is about to be that guy.
Yeah, Craig Biggio got to the Hall of Fame based on one thing:
Yeah,
3,000 hits.
Yeah. So I mean, what do you think about the little number milestones? Where it's almost like if you hit that number, you're in.
Okay,
Right?
I think here's what I think: if you get to 300 wins as a pitcher, you're in. Okay, I think 300 wins, you're in as a pitcher.
Yeah.
All right, if you get 3,000 hits and 500 home runs, you're in. It's a lock. Okay, if you hit over 500 home runs, I think you're in. But I think the 3,000 hits has to be looked at a little bit differently. And I don't know why I'm saying that, but I think that, I don't know. I mean, the longer you play, you're going to get 3,000 hits. You know what I mean? But you're not necessarily going to get 500 home runs.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, there are numbers. You're right. There are benchmark numbers that would give you an advantage to getting in.
Also, real quick, I just remembered. I think Ichiro's a 100% guy. I think he has the potential to be.
Does he have 3,000? He has 3,000.
Yeah, American hits.
American hits. Yes, he has American hits. Okay, and he has over 4,000
total
hits, right?
So that'll be interesting.
And he has what? He has like 6 or 7 200 hit seasons.
He has the record for hits in a season too.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I
don't know, but he's going to delay his. Well, he played last year a little bit, but then you saw the Mariners are signing him to a minor league deal, and he's going to play in those first 2 games in Tokyo.
So he won't be eligible to like 2025 or something like that.
Way down the road. So one thing I also want to talk about. We're a little. Of course, they're having the Senior Bowl practice right now. We're a little early for the draft. The Kyler Murray thing.
Yes.
Okay? He obviously entered his name into the NFL draft, which I think is smart. And you hear all these guys on TV like, oh, if the guy should play baseball, he should play baseball. Well, on the surface, if you're guaranteed to be a major league superstar, you're right. You play baseball. Okay?
Right.
But he's not guaranteed anything.
Right.
Okay. So, but his best form of a guarantee right now is being a first round NFL pick.
Right.
Because he's done he's not going to play another game. His stuff is out there. Now the team just have to decide. Well, if he signed, he was drafted by the A's first round.
Right.
I think 8th overall, signed. Got the $4.5 million signing bonus.
Right.
That's all he's guaranteed in baseball.
Correct.
He could not make it past AA, for all we know.
Right.
Okay? Football, all that has to happen is one of these teams need a quarterback, talk themselves into him, which is going to be most likely going to happen. It happens every year.
Right.
You look at Mayfield, not saying he's going to be number 1 pick, but he's a chance. I don't know. Cardinals don't really need a quarterback, but somebody could trade up. Mayfield got 25 guaranteed, 25 to 27.
Right.
Okay, so if he breaks his ankle, breaks his leg in the first game and never plays again, he's got his $25 million, which is way more than 4.
Right.
Right? So you combine that with the fact that if you get drafted in the NFL, you're going to be playing in the NFL right away.
Correct.
Baseball, you have to go through the minor leagues.
Correct.
I think it's a smart move for him. I think that he should pick football.
I agree with that. I mean, I agree with that 100% because even if he gets picked in the late first round, right?
Yeah,
he's still going to get over $10 million of a signing bonus, which is still 2 to 2.5 to 3 times more than he got from the A's.
Right.
So, and you're right. Somebody does it every year. Somebody will make a stretch and will draft the guy because the only thing they keep he's like 5'9", okay, which Drew Brees is 6 foot tall. Mayfield's not that tall.
I'm not even saying he's going to be successful. I'm just saying he's going to be a first round pick.
We're just talking about the pick. Yeah. I think it's a smart move on his part. Yeah. And if he doesn't get hurt, if he just washes out, he can always go play baseball.
That's true. Yeah. Baseball has a better extended age playing window than football does.
Exactly. Yeah. He can always go play. He can always go play baseball after that if he decides to. So that's not a bad idea at all. I don't disagree with that at all.
I think he made the right move there.
But here's my thinking on the deal is that all he's done is made himself eligible for the draft. Right? He hasn't said he's not playing baseball.
Right.
Okay. If you're an NFL team, why would you waste a draft pick on him when you're not sure what he's going to do? Right? In my view, if he wants to follow what you just said, which I agree with, he needs to come out and say, I'm playing football. All right.
Well, he's going to have to say that in these meetings.
He's got to, right?
Yeah, you're right. These teams they're going to ask him, and he's going to have to say that.
Exactly, because why would you waste your first round pick on a guy that may not even play for you? I mean,
well, you wouldn't. That's why, like you said, he's not. he's not saying it publicly. It's probably just to keep his options open, but he's going to have to tell the teams that.
He's going to have to, yeah.
Right?
I mean, otherwise you wouldn't pick him till the third or fourth round. You know?
That's ridiculous. Yeah, and then I mean, I think I heard some talks that he was telling the A's that he wanted upward close to $15 million and he'd forgo football or something like that, and if he got a major league deal from the A's, which meant they'd have to put him on the 40-man roster.
Right.
But they obviously didn't give that to him, which
Right.
I don't think they should. He's
Right.
never played an inning of pro baseball.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, if I was the A's, I'd say, listen, this is what we have for you. If not, you can play football. That's
exactly.
fine.
Good luck to you. Yeah. In fact, my understanding, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but they had to give him permission to play this year at Oklahoma, didn't they? Yeah. So, I mean, that's pretty good on their part. They basically took a chance doing that. What if he got hurt?
Yeah. I mean, but credit to him, too, because if I was him, I would have not played football this fall. I'd have been, okay, I'm a first-round pick.
Right.
Here we go with baseball. But he played and
won the Heisman Trophy.
Won the Heisman Trophy and put himself in the position to be a first-round pick.
Yeah.
Like we said, I'm not so sure he's a successful NFL quarterback, but he's in the position to be drafted like that.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Yeah, I agree with that.
So besides that, we got Tiger Woods playing right now.
Tiger Woods is playing. He was 2 under last time I checked.
Yeah.
But he just hit right before we started our podcast. He'd hit a drive into the
golf season's getting started. James Harden. I'm going to touch on James Harden.
Yes, let's talk about James Harden.
He had 61 last night at Madison Square Garden to tie Kobe's record for visiting player. The more I'm seeing of this guy, he's amazing. Like I'm drinking the Kool-Aid a little bit. I'm starting to a little bit.
But is he hurting the Rockets?
Well, not right now because he's kind of having to do this because Paul's still out. He's been out.
That's true.
Who else do they have as a go-to scoring option
right
now?
Yeah.
I mean,
somebody on one of the shows today was talking about how he scored 61 points and never got an assist from anybody.
Yeah.
Like nobody ever passed him the ball.
Right. Yeah. I know. That's incredible.
That's pretty amazing when you think about it.
I know. And his average right now is about 37 a game, which puts him. I think I saw a thing. He's 6th all time now, or something like that for seasons. Like Will averaged 50 that one season.
Yeah, well,
Jordan one season averaged like 38 in the 80s, but Harden like right up there. So, but yeah, I mean, go ahead. What?
No, go ahead.
No, I think the Rockets GM came out and said he's in the conversation for best offensive player of all time, which I think is a little absurd. I don't think he's as good as Kobe.
No,
not the offensive player that Jordan was.
Well, let's go back. Let's go back to what we talked about either together or on this podcast or both. Okay, is what does Kobe and Jordan have? They were great offensive players, as good if not better than Harden, but they were assassins. Yeah. Okay, if you put them they wanted the ball in pressure situations and usually would come through. Harden 2 years ago went in the tank.
Playoffs is a different story. Yeah. He hasn't. Yeah.
So to me, statistics during the regular season are a fluff. Okay, They're great. Don't get me wrong. They're what gets you in the Hall of Fame, like we've talked about. But you have to be able to deliver when your team needs you in the postseason. I think, and he's not able to do that. Yeah. At least hadn't been so far.
He hasn't proven it.
Exactly.
I think that he's the MVP this year. He's going to win back-to-back MVPs.
Probably.
I think that he's the best player in basketball right now. Best offensive player. Yeah, I'd probably say best overall player too.
Would you really?
Yeah. It's hard because you have different positions. Like Anthony Davis, I think is the best big man. Just as far as physical presence, you still got to get to LeBron, I think. But overall, I'd give it to Harden. His skill set offensively is pretty much unmatched. Although he does travel all the time.
Yes, he does.
As is pointed out quite a bit.
Well, what do you think? You mentioned LeBron. What do you think he's? I think he's purposely not coming back.
I agree. Yeah. He could have come back earlier.
Yeah. I think he realizes, one, this team's not going to go anywhere. But also I think he thinks, hey, I'm going to milk this as long as I can and then come back and vault them into
He's looking at the standings. I mean, they're a half game out of the 8th seed.
They were like the 4th seed for a while, weren't they?
So they're right in strike distance. So he's going to sit as long as he can.
And then come back and strike.
Come back and he's resting up. He's going to come back and strike.
Yeah. And then he'll say, I single-handedly put them in the 3rd seed.
And then, the media will be like, oh, no, he's getting no help. And then he'll turn over the roster in the summer like he always does. It's going to be the same thing.
Same thing, Right. Same thing.
That'll be, so keep an eye on that also. But
and what'll be interesting to see this year in basketball is, will the Golden State Warriors be like the Patriots we just talked about? I mean, they're having they're having what you arguably would say is their worst regular season over their run, right?
Yeah.
But they got to be like just bored with the regular season, right?
Yeah.
I mean, to them, it's just a matter of, hey, let's get to the playoffs, and then,
it's even more boring than the Patriots.
Got to be, because you got to play 82 games.
Yeah, and it's even easier in basketball to flip the switch in the playoffs than in football.
And, this is something maybe we can talk about on another podcast, because you're an athlete, and I'd like to bring our producer in when we talk about it too, but is the mindset of that, you know what I mean, as an athlete. Like, for example, let's say you're Tom Brady, and maybe not even Tom Brady, let's say Steph Curry or those guys or anybody. You've won 3 out of the last 4 championships. Brady goes, how do you even get yourself motivated? You know what I mean? Like, forget about Brady for a minute. Let's talk about the basketball guys. I mean, here it is November 3rd, and you're playing the first game of the season. You got 82 games ahead of you. You just won 3 of the last NBA titles, okay? You're a back-to-back MVP or whatever. How do you even get yourself motivated to go out there and do it?
I think it's actually easier for like a Curry or a Brady, because at this point you're playing for your legacy, quote unquote, where Curry's like, okay, I want to be the greatest shooter of all time. People already consider him that, some people. And Brady, the greatest quarterback of all time. I think it's harder for your average player to feel that way. Because if you're a I don't know, like a Klay Thompson or a Draymond Green, you've got your big contract.
Right.
You've won 3 championships. Right. What's in it for you? Like, you're not a historically great player. Like, what, you know what I mean?
So let me take that point one step further. Based on what you said, which I agree with, is that maybe why these teams then start to fall off, because the role players lose that edge.
I think that's the case for sure. I don't know all the contract situation with the Warriors. I know Durant can leave after this year, but this may be their last little window to win the championship.
Could be. Could be. Could be. Good stuff. Interesting stuff.
For sure. That'll do it for this episode. I'm back this episode. We had a Ralph only episode, which is good last time around. But
we did have a Joseph only episode, but for some reason we lost the audio, so it'll be in the lost episodes of the Press Box Podcast.
Right. Thanks for joining us on this episode. As always, follow us on Twitter at the Press Box Podcast, and we will see you next time. For Ralph, this is Joseph, signing off on this episode.